Welcome to this webinar session, everyone. Hope you can all hear me and hope you can all see my screen as well. Welcome once again and thank you for joining us today. It's so wonderful to meet you all virtually today. Hope you're all keeping safe and thank you once again. In today's session, we'll see how HR professionals can use technology to build better organizations in this digital COVID age. We have a special speaker amidst us today, Andrew Spence, a workforce futurist, somebody who can try and foresee things of the future and blend it with contemporary practices to give us effective and apt solutions. So Andrew Spence is with us today to share his thoughts on HR technology and how to use it to build better organizations. So he is the apt person to be with us today. He also works as the HR transformation director of Glassbead Consulting. He's also a renowned speaker and he's also recognized as one among the top 100 HR tech influencers of the year 2020 by Human Resources Executive and the HR Tech Conference. So I'm really glad he's with us today. Thank you, Andrew, for joining me, and thank you, dear attendees, for joining us today. So before I hand it over to Andrew, let me quickly introduce the agenda to you all and also some quick announcements. So we'll start with Andrew. He'll share his thoughts on how HR can use technology to build better organizations. And then I'll take over to highlight some features of Zoho People that can help you, particularly during this digital COVID age. At the end of the webinar, we'll have an exclusive 10 minutes just to answer your questions. So any questions relevant to the topic discussed today, any questions on Zoho People, you can let us know. Please note that you are in the listen only mode. Please use the question space or the chat space to send us over your questions. So Andrew will be answering them, and any questions on Zoho People, I'll be answering them at the end of the session. Thank you one more time, and let me hand it over to Andrew now. Andrew, I'm transferring session controls over to you. The stage is all yours.
Well, thank you, Annie. Thank you for the introduction. And thank you to everyone who's taken time out of your day to listen to this webinar. On a personal note, I do hope that you and your family are coping okay in these really challenging times. But today I'm going to talk about how HR can use technology to build better organizations in association here with Zoho People. Now, I covered a similar topic with Zoho at a conference in Birmingham in the UK earlier in February this year. And boy, how things have changed. For a start, from the stage, I could actually see the faces and reactions of people I was speaking to, which is usually a good thing. And since February, everything has changed for all of us. Today, we're using technology rather than meeting in person at a conference. And this is similar for many organizations in the digital COVID age. Now, I know Zoho People have done some excellent webinars on how HR can respond to the COVID crisis, including one I saw recently with Nick Holly. Today, I'm going to build on that. I'm going to give some examples of how employers are using artificial intelligence, blockchain, and people analytics to solve business problems. And Annie will be showing how Zoho products can help you too. Listen, years ago, I gained my master's in cognitive science and artificial intelligence at the University of Birmingham in the UK. This was a long time before Miss Siri and Mr. Watson were on the scene. And since then, I've worked with over 30 global transformation programs in a variety of settings, from Gothic psychiatric hospitals and prisons in London to futuristic technology campuses in Bangalore, gigantic train depots in Berlin, and I've even survived visioning sessions in Los Angeles. And I've been lucky to see some great ways of working where teams of people are empowered to achieve great things. But I've also seen too many sad cubicles organizations doomed to fail, and underutilized talent. Now, my passion is to make work better, much better. Now, I don't know much about you, but let's get a conversation going. So I'm gonna put a poll here on your screens now that I'd like you all to complete. If you can see that, which technology? How come somebody voted without me asking the question? You're just too clever. Which technology will be the most impactful on the workforce in the next 10 years, do you think? The options are artificial intelligence, mobile, already around, blockchain, Excel, which apparently is still being used, or some other technology that we don't know about right now or isn't mentioned. So give me your responses there, please. So actually, interesting. Someone has said other. I'm really intrigued at what that technology is. That's really interesting. Could it be quantum computing, robotics? 3 votes for blockchain, 11%. Mobile gets 10%, but the majority of people are saying artificial intelligence will be the most impactful technology on the workforce in the next 10 years. That is really interesting. And we're going to come back onto that as we go through this session. Now, we have a global audience here. I see people in the chats from Brazil, Canada, the United States, France, and the UK. And here in the UK, it's nearly dinner time for us. I think it's about lunchtime on the East Coast in Canada, maybe brunch on the West Coast, and surely it's time for bed in India. Wherever you are, I'd like you to sit back, take a sip of your coffee or your gin and tonic, shut your eyes and imagine as I ask you to listen to this future scenario. Jo, an account manager, is being taken to the office in her Bug, Beamer, Uber, Google driverless car. She's discussing her day with her automated coaching partner, Sirius. This is my robot voice. I notice that you had less alpha rhythm sleep last night. I suggest you have some breakfast to increase your energy levels. At 11 o'clock, you have a meeting with the new client executive. She's usually skeptical initially, but warms up. Remember to ask her an open question and smile to help her feel at ease. I noticed that Lee, your insights manager, has a different socializing pattern and lower productivity since coming back from sick leave last week. It might be worth checking in with him today while in the office. Okay, I know what you're thinking. This futuristic scenario requires you to suspend your disbelief. Well, firstly, it meshes together different data sets that we don't measure at the moment on performance, location, personal biometric data. Secondly, it assumes we've got a robust framework for the prediction of behavior, and we're not quite there yet. And finally, it assumes employees like Jo are willing for our employers to use their personal data on movement, diet, and performance in this way. All currently outrageous, but could this type of insight be possible in the future? A question: who would want a serious automated coaching partner on your phone? Would it appeal to you? And would you like to roll that out to your business? Well, look, in my view, we should give these types of tools to our employees to become better at work, more productive, and more healthy. But a word of warning. In London, a couple of years ago, there was outrage after the Daily Telegraph put sensors under the journalists' desks. Lesson learned: always get permission from employees first, especially when your employees are journalists. And in the digital COVID era, with millions of employees working from home, there's reports of employers using surveillance to recreate the oversight of the office at home, tracking login times, even taking screenshots. So we should use technology to empower our workers, but not to spy on them. We can provide employees with tools like Zoho Connect to enable teams to communicate with each other and feel connected. And I think it's important for people's sense of autonomy and dignity and mental health that home remains a private space and people are trusted to do their work. So I think the quantified worker will be introduced, but only at the speed of employee trust. The pandemic has exposed the fault lines in our societies in governance, trust, infrastructure, and inequalities in gender, race, and age. Around half of workers around the world are currently able to work from home, and there's talk of a remote work revolution. But, the physical location of some work may have changed, but the organization of that work is still very much centralized. Now, as governments have tried to pay workers quickly, there has been a revelation. Not everyone has a job with set hours, set work location, and boss. In fact, of the 3.3 billion employed in the world, 2 billion are informally employed. More than half of the world's working age women are not in the labor force. And those with jobs under HR's responsibility, there's a debate raging about remote work. On the one hand, Jack Dorsey, the Twitter boss, says staff can work from home forever. But Reed Hastings, the founder of Netflix, says home working is a pure negative. So we're going to talk later on this about how we can use technology to help us with this decision making. Now, there are many ways to earn and learn in 2020, from laborers to playborers, from carers to sharers, from preachers to teachers. A job contract with the associated boss and salary is not the answer for everyone. In the USA, up to 1 in 7 working age adults have worked via a platform at some point. Now, the gig economy is not new or well defined, but it includes artists, on-call workers, contractors, seasonal workers, and even a few HR consultants. Then we have the unpaid workers. If American women earn minimum wage for the unpaid work they do around the house and caring for relatives, they would have made $1.5 trillion last year. And then we've got the playborers. As you might have guessed, this term is a hybrid of play and labor found in digital games, where people get paid to play games. If you look at the top 10 list of YouTube earners, it includes 5 gamers who play Minecraft and Fortnite. Number 3 in the list is Nastya, with 42 billion video views. Nastya is 5 years old, born in southern Russia with cerebral palsy, and her earnings in 2019, $18 million. So if your kids are struggling with their homework, this gives you another idea. But seriously, we need to rethink work. And the decentralized workforce I describe is a big opportunity to boost the global economy and improve social justice. And this is all enabled by pretty much freely available tools and tech, including mobile, video, social media, etc. From this, new types of organizations, I think, will emerge, new platforms that are better suited for our need. And over the longer term, this questions the nature of the employee-employer contracts and even the JOB. And in HR, we need to get better at procuring work more generally. It's not just always just people and full-time positions. We need to nurture broader talent pools like freelancers, but maybe not Nastya for a few years yet. If you're interested in this subject, my long essay on unleashing the decentralized workforce is available to read for free for subscribers on my Workforce Futurist newsletter on Substack. Now, a topical question is, will robots take our jobs? Well, the way this has been reported in the press is a bit misguided. Of course, robots have their uses. For example, during the pandemic, American Eagle Outfitters deployed robots to help it sort clothes in its warehouses to meet a surge of online orders. But robots have always been used to project our greatest fears in films and literature. In fact, did you know the word robot is Czech from robota, meaning forced labor? Now, we can't possibly predict the kind of work there's going to be in 10 years. Who would have predicted the impact of the smartphone only a few years ago, the internet 20 years ago, or indeed COVID-19. And as we watch the geopolitical ramifications of USA versus China playing out, the ongoing battle between capital and labor, and supply and demand chasing each other like dogs in the park, it's going to be very hard to predict what work will look like in the next 10 years. But technology will change our work. And many economists try and analyze the impact of automation on jobs. But maybe they overlook a couple of things. One, technology's already changed the workforce. And two, the way we go about finding work and workers, what I call the infrastructure of work, is changing rapidly. And boy, does it need to. The internet has given us so many options when it comes to fulfilling our need to play, to shop, to socialize, and for entertainment. It offers us new routes to status, friendships, and meaning that work has done in the past. So the internet will provide a continuous competitive market for our attention, and the overlap between entertainment, learning, and work is going to play out in interesting ways in the next decade. For employers, new workforce strategies are going to emerge in the context of local job market supply. And it will be these dynamics that dictate our HR and management practices. But before we predict what work will look like in the future, we do need to redefine work. So I'm not sure these cute robots will be doing our work just yet. Here's a nice picture on the left of me with Harry, the HR robot. Of course, automation will replace much of the lower level transactional work that we do. Thank God for that. But rest assured, for us humans, we're still going to need empathy, critical thinking, complex problem solving skills, communication skills, creativity. And, with an aging workforce in many countries, a better question than will robots take our jobs is, what if robots don't take our jobs? Well, all I can say is there's going to be a transition, as there always is, and HR leaders are in a prime position to help people manage this transition. And what about tech opportunities in HR, in the workforce? Whenever we have new tech, it's tempting just to apply it to the old processes. So, for example, we had the paper job applications. Many of you will be too young to remember the paper job applications. And then the internet came along and we put all those fields from the paper application onto the internet. And it took us a while to refine that process. Then mobile came along and we put all the internet job application onto the mobile. But that didn't quite work out, and we got better at refining it. So it's many less fields. But with new technology, we also have an opportunity to rethink work. Now, in this section, I'm going to focus briefly on cloud, AI, and blockchain, plus a couple of examples from people analytics. Now, the move to the cloud, or software as a service, has been a step change for HR. Not because the functionality is generations better, but cloud-based software has forced the standardization of our HR processes. You can't mold a cloud-based system around the nuances of your own company's processes when there's only one version of the software. And this software isn't just for big organizations with massive budgets. Did you know that over 70% of US workers in the private sector work in a business with less than 10,000 employees? And smaller companies too can all benefit from cloud-based software like Zoho People with free trials. There's no excuse for not trying it out. Now, in looking forward at technology, it's also useful to look back momentarily. What has the internet ever done for HR? Are there any Monty Python fans out there? Let me know. The internet has brought us lots of benefits, from emails to PDFs, but in some ways, we're in the digital dark ages in the world of work. Our humble resume has been used to apply for jobs since its invention by Leonardo da Vinci in the 15th century. Employers and workers know details on our resume will never be checked. And in the digital age, where we have Google, our data is not easily searchable. where studied at Harvard can mean studied Harvard Business Review. From an economist's perspective, there's poor visibility of information on available workers and vacancies, and it leads to inefficient matching, which is why we have a recruitment and staffing industry. 600 million people have their profiles on LinkedIn, for example, and we provide our career history free of charge. And Microsoft, who own LinkedIn, then sell this data to recruiters. Now, I think there's a broader backlash on how our personal data is being used, and this includes in the world of work and careers. So we do need to build a new work infrastructure for the next generation, including sorting out our personal career data, which I will cover briefly when we talk about blockchain. Now, in the early 1940s, in the midst of the Second World War in Europe, teams worked around the clock to try to break the codes of the Axis powers. One of the hut leaders was Alan Turing, a mathematician who built a machine or early computer to process the codes more quickly. After the war, Turing posed the question in a book, Can Machines Think? Now, back in the 1990s, when I did my master's, there was not much demand for my rookie AI programming skills. But there were three types of students on my master's program. There were engineers trying to model how the brain works with face recognition or speech processing. There were philosophers. Can a computer really think? And there were psychologists. What can it tell us about us strange humans? And over 20 years, who would have foreseen all the breakthroughs we have had, mainly in the engineering side of things? But I suspect with all the behavioral data that we now have and are collecting, we're going to learn more about ourselves in the next 10 years than we have in the last 100. And what about AI in HR? Well, AI has a problem. And the clue is in the name. You try asking 100 people or even psychologists for a definition of intelligence, and they'd all be different. It does suffer from cutesy anthropomorphism, putting human characteristics on inanimate objects. But the future of work will not always have a face on it. Basically, the way to look at AI is as a continuation of the general automation trend, more algorithms and advanced statistics. In general, AI includes natural language processing, pattern recognition, and machine learning. And we've probably all used AI today with one of our apps, whether that's Netflix or Spotify or Uber. And what about in HR? Well, AI comes into its own in recruitment with pattern recognition that can be missed by us humans with all our preconceived ideas and biases. The Holy Grail, that's another Monty Python reference, in hiring is finding the perfect new team member. We have potentially thousands of data points from skills, demographics, personality, interview performance that might predict subsequent work performance. Let me give you a positive example of using AI in HR. And the example is from a company called Textio. Basically, it's improving the basic job description by statistically analyzing response patterns to different words. So one of their findings was in gender differences. As we know, 80% of software engineers are male. And the words work hard, play hard, or ninja, guess what, attracted more guys. Does that surprise you? Not really. And using the words adaptable and creative attracted more females. This will not surprise seasoned recruiters. But my point is, we can use this technology to get the outcomes we want for our companies. But we do need to use the right tools for the job. Let me give you another example to illustrate this. Amazon tried to build such a machine to hire the best technologists. They wanted to be able to take their 10,000 applications and find the very best 5 or 6 candidates based on past criteria of success. But the only problem is that the typical software engineer looks a bit like me, a hairy man. So the pattern recognition software was actually screening out words with women in them, like women's chess club. Now, to be fair, this was done years ago. It was recognized and it was fixed. So, of course, AI is very useful, But with any tool, we need to use it in the right way. Now, we know that successful team dynamics is critical in building organization. However, many of our HR and people management processes are still designed around the individual. And one better way to gain a better understanding on teams is organizational network analysis. It's not a new field, but it's becoming more and more useful. One method is for employees to complete quick pulse surveys and also to look at their communication patterns. So the open feedback questions are interspersed to understand sentiment and key issues. And the end result is a visual representation of team dynamics. So the pretty picture that you can see is an example of a company that grew from 30 people to 500. And what they found was they spent 60% of their time in meetings and were unproductive. So when they did this analysis, they found that the blue dots had been there the longest. They were the people who'd been there the longest. The green dots were relatively new people. And of course, you can guess which dot is the CEO, highlighted helpfully in red. The diagram shows strong teams, but nobody new added to the core of the decision making. The company wanted to be agile, but was slow. So after this analysis, they made some changes with really good improvements. They created guiding principles for meetings, and they stopped their dinner club they had once a month just for the founding team. Kind of obvious afterwards, but the analysis was helpful to sort out these workforce problems. This was a case study by Innovisor in Denmark. And other uses of ONA in COVID-19 would be around employee well-being, looking at staff who are at risk of burnout, looking at isolation, are employees at risk of working in silos with narrowing collaboration networks, identifying influencers, and also real-time listening. Now, let me give you another example to the question of remote working. Are people happier working from home? What does people analytics tell us? Well, if we look at the academic research, there was a paper published in 2017 in the American Economic Review, and it found that workers were willing to accept an 8% pay cut to work from home. That's interesting. Leisman studied more than 100,000 white-collar workers around the world during the pandemic, and it found that satisfaction with working from home varies according to whether that person has a dedicated office and desk space or not. So if you're crowded around the kitchen table, fighting for space with the kids doing their homework, it's not ideal. So the challenge for bosses is to find ways of preserving and boosting employee happiness and innovation as home working becomes more common. And this research was done by Organization View based in Switzerland. And what they did is they analyzed large volumes of text from employee feedback. And this data gives you another angle from the quantitative survey data and gives employees an opportunity to express what's most important to them. So it does pick up on topics that wouldn't normally be found. Employees frequently provided a couple of pieces of information around what their experience is and why this matters to them. And from 100,000 comments from different sectors, some themes emerged. The chart shows co-occurrence, topics that people mention together. And each segment can be mapped to the demographic data to create personas to help develop solutions. So in summary, employees strongly value working from home, but don't want to do it every day. And these themes occurred shortly after the rapid switch to working from home. It's quite possible people are getting fed up now after a few months. The honeymoon period for working from home could be over. So they recommend letting employees self-select to work from home if at all possible. Now, the next topic is interesting to me. When you think of blockchain, you might think of Bitcoin. Well, blockchain is the underlying technology behind Bitcoin. But blockchain, it doesn't converse with you. It won't 3D print a house for you or cut out your kidney stones with precision while the surgeon has a cup of tea. So of all the emerging technologies, blockchain is the least exciting, but potentially the most impactful on society. Basically, blockchain is a decentralized database shared among a network of computers, all of which must approve and exchange before it can be recorded. And there's a lot of interest in many industries, in financial services, supply chain, and education. Let me give you an example in the world of work and education. Last year, Singapore announced that all new students graduating from its universities will be issued with digital wallets to demonstrate the validity of their degree. One of the largest enterprise cloud providers, Workday, announced Workday credentials, allowing candidates to apply for jobs using verifiable credentials. And the non-profit foundation, the Velocity Foundation, has been formed this year with 15 of the big HR tech and staffing providers. They plan to build an internet of careers. So there's change coming. And in HR, the main categories of solutions for blockchain are around identity management and career profiles used to validate who someone is, credential verification platforms for a broad range of credentials in the workplace, work history, references, employment history, skills, degrees, payment platforms for workers. Well, we know that in some countries, the overseas remittance fees for workers can be 5 to 13% of salary. So these platforms allow people to exchange money on a peer-to-peer platforms with much lower fees. And the big exciting area is work matching platforms. Basically, these peer-to-peer freelance platforms allow us to exchange our time and skills for money, and they're across different sectors. So I mentioned the identity and credentials, and this also will impact our future resume. Well, you might recognize this fellow, who I believe is now active in the job market. It's a fellow countryman known as 007 with some excellent credentials. You might not be able to read this, but key projects include Casino Royale, Skyfall. Advanced skills include driving Aston Martins very fast. And these new decentralized profiles will be owned and controlled by you. The skills and experiences can be verified by issuing entities like employers or universities. They need to be verified once, so reducing all the checking that is done currently. Over time, we can build up our digital badges and accomplishments, and we can use them to share with future employees potentially using these peer-to-peer platforms. Now, as mentioned before, the type of data on a resume is only a fraction of the data that can be used to predict work performance, but it's the foundation for a new infrastructure of work. And how do I see this playing out? Well, over a few waves over the next decade, I see the first wave around organizing our data, our work and hiring data better candidate verification with more efficient labor markets, enabling more trust in work. Wave 2, I imagine there'll be more seamless work matching. There'll be more people in the gig economy. There'll be fairer pay, more trust. And society would then need to adapt to a more attractive, fairer economy for independent workers. Of course, lifelong learning will be a big theme, especially as babies born today are expected to live beyond 100. They're going to have a long working career. So there's many ways of being paid for our time, our attention, and our data. Wave 3, we start getting into the realms of predicting the future. It's much more tenuous. But if you ask me, I think that we might well see more autonomous organizations trying to source work using AI machines. And that changes the way we manage work. It changes people management. Rather than leading work, it's about sourcing work and networks of teams. And this will change the way organizations work, education works, and we might even see the demise of the traditional job and the firm. So a lot of change happening. If you're interested in reading more about this, I did a 10,000 word paper that's available as a PDF on my website with Don Tapscott's Blockchain Research Institute, which you can find. But in summary, with blockchain, it's still the early days, but now there's some traction. It's developing fast. And what can you do as HR and tech professionals? Well, you can get involved, you can try out demos, you can join pilots, try out the tools. Now I want to come on to digital transformation. Research shows that 70% of digital transformation programs fail. That is a lot of wasted dollars spent on these programs. And in the digital COVID age, Satya Nadella, Microsoft's CEO, has said, we've seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in 2 months. But why do many digital transformation programs fail? I want to ask my second question to you to see what you think. What are the main reasons digital transformation programs fail? You can hopefully see the poll on the screen in front of you. I'd be very interested to see this. So the categories are digital transformation, all about technology. Why do they fail? Is it technology? Is it poor leadership? Is it the people? Is it the bucks, the funding? Is it another reason you can think of? What do you think? What's the main reason $1 trillion was wasted on digital transformation programs in the last few years? Okay, so the results are coming in. Exciting and very topical poll results. So only 4% of you, no, actually 8% of you said technology. The biggest number of votes was for leadership, 73%. How interesting. And 20% said people. And that's fascinating, 20%. So that more people thought that people was the reason programs fail and leadership than technology. That is really fascinating. So I'm going to share with you the results from a survey of leaders. So they said the biggest reason digital transformation programs fail is the people. So well done if you chose that as your answer. Knowledge was second, finance and the incentives third, culture fourth, going down to leadership and vision there towards the bottom, but still at 18%, still significant. Now, I've worked on lots of organizational change programs over the last couple of decades, and these results don't surprise me. And I think one reason is that many programs start with the wrong questions. I get phone calls. Andy, how can we implement AI and blockchain in our organization? But they're the wrong questions. We need to start with the strategic questions. For example, how do we achieve our organizational goals and remain competitive in this era? What capabilities do we need in the digital COVID age? What type of culture and workforce do we need? The good news for HR leaders is that you have this expertise in people, change, and culture. So HR needs to play a much bigger role in digital transformation. And remember, the first rule of digital transformation, don't mention digital transformation. Leave the jargon in the project team. Another tip on transformation programs, cast the net widely on improvement ideas. It will be your employees who have the best ideas. Involve them early in the process. Now, how does HR, who are extremely busy for obvious reasons, how do they make sense from all these different solutions out there? And the transformation programs, the blockchain, the AI, the workforce, the remote working. Well, I think one thing that's helped me in the past has been just to use an evidence-based practice. And what I mean by that is the evidence-based practice is simply that good quality decisions require both critical thinking and the use of the best available evidence. And the evidence typically comes from four sources. The scientific evidence. I've mentioned one or two scientific studies during this webinar. Organizational evidence. I've shown you examples of surveys from organizations that are gathered from your organization. Experiential evidence from practitioners who've been there and done it. Stakeholder evidence, so the values and concerns of people who may be affected by the decision. So, what I would say is that evidence based practice can help you avoid the worst mistakes. And a good takeaway for you listening to this webinar, two really good resources on evidence-based management that you can access is the Center for Evidence-Based Management, CEBM, based in the Netherlands, but you can access some of their training materials online. And another good resource is Science for Work. You should be able to find good examples of evidence-based approaches there. Now, as we come to the conclusion of this webinar, I'll leave you with a quote that I've found really useful over the years when we're thinking about digital transformation. There is nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all. Some wise words there from Peter Drucker. So I'm going to conclude. We've covered some of the emerging technology solutions being used in HR, from robotics to AI, organizational network analysis, and even blockchain. What will happen in the next few years will be that we will have to rethink work itself. We're going to distribute more work tasks on talent platforms. These tasks will be carried out by a broader set of people, contractors, augmented humans, robots, and automated systems. In this context of technological and organizational change, people management and HR functions will be radically different. What does this mean for the future of HR? My dream is that successful HR functions in the future will deliver results by being workforce technology evangelists, people scientists, and be the default location for all issues to do with people and organizations. And successful organizations in the future will rethink existing ways of working, not by copying Google or Amazon. Embrace the diversity of people and ideas. Spread the net widely. Adopt an evidence-based management approach to avoid the worst mistakes. Build trust with employees. Empower them. Don't spy on them. Experiment with new technology. Try it out. And with more focus on tasks versus jobs and teams versus individuals. Now, for all of us who are navigating successful careers over the next decade, here are some ideas. One hasn't changed for centuries. Know yourself. It's old advice, but now is a pretty good time to reflect. Stay curious. Well, you're on this webinar. That's a good sign. Be adaptive to change. We have no choice, right? Think like a business with our career. Develop and control your digital work credentials. It's your data and life. And we expect learning to be lifelong and continuous. As I mentioned, the wee babies born living to 100, they're not just going to go and do a degree when they're 18 or 19 for 3 years and then work for another 50, are they? There's going to be continuous learning. Build great networks. You never know when you'll need them. And pace yourself. And of course, look after your health. My final words. We've taken a short skip from Joe and Sirius in their bug car to Nastya. And I've also had some help from my compatriots, Monty Python and James Bond. HR should seize this opportunity to learn new skills, rethink people management, lead the change, and design the future. We have everything we need to build amazing new organizations. We do need to ditch some of the old ways, reinvent some of the others, and off we go. Throughout history, when we've worked together, we have solved seemingly intractable problems, and we will again. Work is not dead. In fact, our most important work is yet to come, rebuilding a resilient, fair, and prosperous society. So I wish you good luck on your journeys to create a new generation of successful organizations. I would love to hear your views, so do keep up the discussion. You know where to find me. Probably the best way is on Twitter at Andy Spence, or you can follow the Workforce Futurist newsletter. And finally, I'd like to thank Zoho People for their support and for hosting this webinar. And thank you, the audience, for listening. So I'd like to just now hand over to Annie to conclude.
Great. Thank you, Andy. It was truly a trip to the future, I would say. Now, dear attendees, let's see how technology can help you, can enable these transformations. So while we are looking to pause our existing things, rethink our strategies, and move on to a next phase, let's see technology as an enabler. So that's exactly what we do at Zoho Corporation. We provide software as a service, a SaaS company. So I'm sure most of you today would know about Zoho Corporation, but let me quickly introduce for those who don't know. So we are out there in the business for 25 plus years, and we have 45 plus applications ranging across various work fields, be it sales and marketing. We have automation apps, we've got IT management, we've got human resources, collaboration and connectivity, and more. And we recently crossed 60 million users, and we work with employees, 8,000 plus employees. So, talking about our applications in particular to human resources, we have Zoho People, cloud based online HR management software. So, right from hiring to retiring and everything in between, Zoho People can take care of you while you take care of your people, your assets, the humans of your organization. And for a more wholesome experience, for a one stop solution, we have Zoho People Plus, a combination of 7 Zoho's application. So starting from recruitment to expense management to connectivity, collaboration, and more, we have Zoho People Plus. So this will be your one-stop solution for all your HR needs. So with all of this, we aim to deliver the best employee experiences. So talking about Zoho People today, I would like to highlight some handpicked features that will help you thrive in this digital COVID age. In fact, we at Zoho Corporation, our HR team, they are using these features, and our users are using these features, and they absolutely love it. So some handpicked features that I would like to share with you all today, starting with a simple COVID-19 health check. So this survey is added to your dashboard as part of Zoho People. Whether you are looking to reopen your offices, or maybe if you're looking to support your employees who are sick, maybe you can make changes to their sick leave policies, or any other means of support, maybe benefits, compensation, and more. A simple survey like this can help you garner the right amount of information, so not just your employee sickness, but also about their family, their work conditions, and more. So a simple survey like this, our customers, they love this survey. They are making decisions with survey like these. And so we had so far we've been discussing many insights. So how do we actually implement this with less amount of manual work? So we have automation, we have automated workflows, mail alerts, field updates, and more. So it's a simple case here. So imagine I am trying to reopen my office, after all of this is over. To ensure that the transition, the reopening, the resuming part is smooth, a simple mail alert telling about, my decision to open offices to different departments, mail alerts here, and even a survey sent out to employees asking them if they would like to come resume work by working from office, automatic field updates, checking employees' health statuses, and more. And a foolproof course of action. You can have checklists and tasks associated to different departments, to different individuals, and more. So this will help you execute your plan flawlessly. So even while you're dealing with a dispersed workforce, automation will enable you put your ideas into action and execute it almost perfectly. So try out automation in Zoho People today. And as Andy did mention, the one thing that we could do is this: we can keep ourselves adaptable, we can always upskill ourselves, and most importantly, our employees, because with the changing trends, with the changing needs, this is important. We need to upskill ourselves based on the upcoming needs of businesses. So, yes, so what's better than bringing learning to your desks, to your homes? So, with an online learning management system, so we have blended learning course types, we have instructor-led course types, classroom sessions if that's possible, or just online sessions and or online documents, guidelines, and more. And not just any learning experience, it's interactive. You have online discussions, and to measure the usefulness of any course, you can collect feedback from your employees, from the learners, ask them if the course was useful for them or the trainer's way of teaching, was it useful to them. Yes, you can collate feedback, and this in turn is integrated with the performance management system. So any skill set information will be in sync with your LMS. So you can suggest courses for your employees to bridge in their skill set gaps. So you see somebody is lacking in a particular skill set, you can suggest a course for them that will help them bridge that particular skill set gap. So the performance management system is perfectly in sync here. Again, do try out learning management systems. So many organizations, they've adopted to online learning during this COVID crisis, and they're all learning from their homes. So not just working from their homes, but actually learning. And questions, so as HR professionals, I'm sure we were all faced questions, repetitive questions, and particularly during times like this, many questions via mails, via chats, via phone calls, asking about how the business is doing, or asking about when the office will reopen, or the number of sick employees in the organization, and more. So how do you deal with all these questions, and how do you give almost instant answers to your employees questions? An online question management tool like this, what we call as cases in Zoho People, you simply need to create categories. So frequently asked questions can go down in these categories. So you can have a category for work from home, or regarding reopening offices, or any other queries. You can neatly sort them into categories. Every category will have an agent. So this agent will be responsible to answer questions. You can have SLAs, you can have frequently asked questions, build your own knowledge base here, and more. And leveraging the power of AI. So we have Zia. This is Zoho's very own personal bot. So this again has been in sync with Zoho People. So you can ask Zia to mark your day's attendance, apply for leave for you while you're sick, or maybe while you're on the move. And if you have any questions, if your employees have any questions, they can always check with Zia. So this will quickly run through the FAQs added, and if no FAQ is relevant, it will raise it as a new question, or a category, or a case for the particular agent to answer. So giving instant answers to your employees who are part of a dispersed workforce is this simple with cases. And finally, this, many organizations around the globe, be it India, be it UK, be it US, any country out there, they are taking drastic decisions right now. So they're suddenly putting a stop to hiring, or they're trying to cut down on costs, and so on. So for any decision that you are taking, why not make it informed? So with the power of analytics, so be it a performance report telling you about a project deliverability, or how your employees are productive while they're working from their homes, a simple report like this, or maybe an organization wide report telling you about your hiring and your attrition trends, or any custom need that you have, you can create your very own custom reports. So this ensures that you are rethinking your strategies with the right information in your hands. So a powerful analytics, and sooner or later we're all going to resume, back to our offices. So many organizations have already started reopening their offices To ensure that resuming to their work in the office is smooth, we have a back to work solution, what we call as office readiness here. So this will help you check on the safety of your office, the safety of your premises. You can have individual DRIs to check on them as part of the system. You can manage visitors, you can manage employee requests, you can maintain the capacity. It comes with default approvals, notifications, and more. So we've launched this at no free cost for our customers to resume work safely. So do try this out, office readiness. And this brings us to the end of the webinar. So I'm sure it was a very useful webinar. And now for your questions. So any questions on the topic that we've discussed today, Andrew will be here for the next 10 minutes to answer them. So please send us over your questions. We would love to make this more interactive now, and we'd love to answer your questions. Thank you.